Today we're going to go over a professional's editorial review of a teenager's very first manuscript, and we are only going to be taking a look at what this person did wrong, which is going to be a little mortifying because this person happens to have been me. So today you get to see just how bad of a writer I was when I started out. First, a little bit of context for those of you who don't already know. The manuscript review we are going to be going over is off of the first novel I wrote when I was 16. I knew absolutely nothing about fiction writing at the time, as you will well see. Be prepared. First, we'll go over some of the things the editor said about the story, and then we'll get to some of his more specific bullet points. The story is weaker right now in two main areas, the beginning and the big picture structure. It seems to do a lot of meandering around in the middle section. This story can be trimmed and strengthened. I'd like to see your entire novel be under 150,000 words. It's 225,000 words now. That's how much of the writing didn't need to be in the story. A lot of beginning writers put things into their stories that don't really need to be there. Or they say things in 2 or 3 different ways in one paragraph when that paragraph would have been stronger if they just stated it in one concise way. That was a big problem that I had when I started out. One thing that will help is a clear understanding for the reader of what it is the characters are trying to do. What you need is an or else, a big bad thing that will happen if they don't get to X so they can do Y or prevent Z. The idea is to set up some stakes, some bad thing that will happen if the heroes aren't able to do some impossible thing in order to avert the disaster. This is a mistake a lot of new writers make. Either we don't have stakes in the story or they aren't engaging enough to draw the reader through. We don't know what we're doing. Your beginning is very clumsy in my opinion. I suspect it's the part you wrote when you were 14, but then the writing got better as you got older. Wrong guess? No. Basically the right guess. In my opinion, you should give us a full description of setting by the second half of the first page of a scene in a new setting. Descriptions of settings was something I really struggled with in the beginning, and some people believe that they shouldn't be in novels, but I'm of the opinion that it's an integral part of fiction. You've begun the book by having characters talk about types of magic users. What you've done here is answer a question the reader is not yet asking. The reader would quickly get bored and or irritated. A classic case of telling over showing. Even when something more active begins, you still use it as an opportunity to drop a backstory and exposition. Remember, the reader doesn't yet care about your characters or your story world. I recommend you delete and or rewrite your entire opening scene. It's pure exposition, an information dump extraordinaire. In the first 9 story pages, you've got 3 scenes. It's too many scenes too quickly. Create a great action opening scene that can go 8 to 10 pages to begin your novel. By page 32, the writing has become much more confident despite still being too confusing. It's like one person wrote the first 20 pages and then someone else took over. The first 20 pages were the first thing I'd ever written, and after that, it was rewrites. So that goes to show you what practice can do for you. It makes your writing so much more confident. And here's what the editor said the main problems with the book were. Formatting. Use Word's indent feature to give each paragraph a 0.5-inch first line indent. I had just hit the space bar twice to create an indent. You've given the page a 1-inch border all around, which is fine, but the industry standard is more often 1 inch on top and bottom, but 1.25 inches to the left and right. Which isn't a big deal, but you want your manuscript looking like other professional manuscripts on agents and editors' desks. Use double spacing. Yours is set to 1.5 spacing. I had no idea what I was doing. I just sat down, opened up Word, and wrote a book. Lots of telling that should be showing, as we've already seen. Some telling in quotation marks. Telling instead of showing, but within a character's dialogue. Some point of view errors. Elwyn did not see so-and-so as she did such and such. The only thing the reader is permitted to sense or know is what the viewpoint character senses and knows. So if she didn't see so-and-so do such and such, she can't know about them, which means we can't know about them. Some apparent logical errors. My story was not consistent within itself. Once you've written a thing, go back and read through it and make sure everything's consistent. Some odd spelling errors, which is not a surprise because I suck at spelling. English is hard. I wrote straight as straight, curious as curios, finally as finely, masters as masters, per se as per se, quiet as quit, knocking as knocking, faint as faint, and birth and scared as birth and scarred. And that was just the beginning. Stick to said when you use dialogue tags. I used a lot of interesting dialogue tags, which a lot of new writers do, and a lot of seasoned writers do that are adamant in using interesting dialogue tags. But it is common practice to stick to said when you use dialogue tags because it is far more invisible and professional. Let's not start a war about this one. Moving on. There were some fiction cliches. Elwyn stood stock still. Gwyndor sat bolt upright. They stopped in their tracks. Eliminate these. You wait too often before identifying who is speaking. I would write dialogue for more than an entire paragraph before inserting a dialogue or action tag. That's a no-no. Your dialogue sometimes feels stilted. Your prose also feels stilted and awkward at times. Your characters sometimes change moods for no apparent reason. That works fine for Elwyn since she's cray-cray, but it doesn't work for others. You often skip over a moment or event and then tell us about it only in recap. Elwyn gasped as a sharp pain sliced through her palm. Elwyn tensed when a rush of sound roared through the place. Basically, if you have a sentence that has the word as or when in the middle of it, check and make sure that your character isn't reacting to something before it actually happens. Form a plural by simply adding s, not apostrophe s. Basic, I know, but I got it mixed up left and right. And that is everything I did absolutely wrong in my very first manuscript. Hopefully this helps you avoid making those same mistakes, or maybe it just gave you a couple of laughs. I'll be making a part 2 where I go over everything I did right or well in the manuscript. That way other new writers out there won't feel entirely disheartened in thinking that we're doing everything absolutely wrong, because beneath all the mistakes we have to make to learn, there's some good stuff waiting to shine through too.